alone don't help, and walking on its own doesn't help. Drinking more water on its own doesn't help. You combine these things step by step, day by day, and then you wake up one day and you're like, wow, I look a little bit better than I did before. I feel a little bit better than I did before. It's not going to happen overnight. It's incremental. But it's really interesting that it's the one area where so many people just want to throw their hands up.
Trevor, you talk as if we don't have any gun laws in this country. We have over 300 federal gun laws and thousands of gun laws on the state and local level.
Hello friends, welcome to Look and Live. You are here with Pastor James Devallon. In today's video, we are going to listen to, I think his name is pronounced Colin Noir. Now, I think this is a French name. It looks like this is what you call Colin Noir. That's how you will say it in French. But anyway, I might be pronouncing his name wrong. I'll grow as I go. All right, so let's listen to this debate here between him. Well, it's not a debate. It's more like a response video to Trevor Noah talking about guns. This was recommended to me in the Discord. I just want to say thank you. I'm guessing Mr. Carlion or Carlion is somewhat an advocate for the Second Amendment, and he seems to have a lot of knowledge. I was told he's a lawyer. He knows more about bearing arms than a lot of people do on YouTube. I'm pretty sure there are others as well, but he seems like the one that's been highly recommended to me. So let's check this debate out, this at least response video together to see who is making a lot more sense here between these two guys talking about gun. So let's get to it.
So I came across this video from Trevor Noah basically engaging in a soliloquy of sorts about his thoughts on the gun conversation and the gun debate in America. So I figured I'd give my own responses to the points he makes in the video because I think they need to be said. So let's dive right in.
Everything else America believes is possible. We're like, we're going to go to the moon. We're going to go to Mars. We're going to cure cancer. It doesn't mean we can't do it. We can do it. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. Then when it comes to guns, all of a sudden, so many people are like, it's impossible to stop it. You can't. There's so many. Oh, what are you going to do?
No, it's not that Americans think it's impossible to stop. It's that we don't believe making people helpless and unable to defend themselves is the way to do it. You're rich. You can hire private security to follow you around for 24 hours, 7 days a week. Most Americans don't have that privilege. So we own handguns, shotguns, and AR-15s to protect our families from criminals and our country from tyrannical governments. You may not like that, yet here you are in America making millions by giving us backhanded compliments and then trying to shame us because we won't bow down to daddy government and say, please take our guns away from us and protect us. The irony.
Good answer here. I think his answer is very balanced, well put together here. That does make a lot of sense, right? We can't just take the guns away in the name of keeping you safe when others who use the gun, of course, some of it, we use it for recreational purposes as well, for those of you who use the gun to shoot and things like that. I don't own one, but I am pro-gun. I believe in self-defense, certainly. I don't believe we can pray over somebody who is just mentally sick, who's coming to hurt your family. It is the duty of a husband to protect his family by all means. So Christian or not, it simply makes sense. So, but I think this notion of taking away the guns just because a mass shooting took place, it seems like this is played out over and over again. If you were to ask me, I think it's getting old.
Say, please take our guns away from us and protect us. The irony.
People try and make it a game of whack-a-mole when it comes to solving problems. You propose any type of solution and they go, well, that wouldn't have solved this one, this wouldn't have stopped that. And you're like, yeah, but that's not how solutions work. Right? There is no problem that is going to be solved by one solution. A lot of the time, big problems require a multitude of solutions. And what you do is you try and fix it incrementally, step by step.
Trevor, your only solution is to further restrict the constitutional right.
Yeah.
We aren't playing whack-a-mole. We're playing Dungeons and Dragons, trying to defend the castle that is our two-way rights that you and your mainstream media cohorts keep trying to siege upon at every opportunity.
Trevor did make somewhat sense to me when he spoke about looking for multiple solutions to a problem. That does make sense. But when it comes to gun, it seems like the only solutions that has been proposed is to place more restriction on guns. It's like more gun control, more gun controls. But that's not the only solution to the problems we have in America. And we know mass shootings are a serious problem. But it seems like the only thing they talk about is to take away the guns of the people, the citizens who legally own guns. And most of them are not committing mass shootings. And majority of the deaths that are taking place are not happening with rightful, legitimized gun owners. This is happening between the average gangster in your streets. These are gang-related violence and things like that in our cities. But anyway, I'll let him finish his response here.
When your mainstream media cohorts keep trying to siege upon at every opportunity. You're not incrementally trying to solve a problem. You're incrementally trying to ban guns. More people are killed with handguns and rifles. If you're willing to ban rifles, why wouldn't the next incremental step be to ban handguns? We're not stupid.
Look at cars, for instance. Cars is a simple idea.
Yeah, it does make sense what Collian is saying here. Is just there is this fear once people say, okay, ban more guns of this sort. When are you gonna stop banning more guns? And again, history has shown us that it's not really a positive thing to take away the guns of the people, because oftentimes the government will later on either become somewhat tyrannical. And if they do become tyrannical, which has happened many times in history, which we know for certain history repeats itself, how do we respond as a people? And again, these are things to consider, but I think it's very obvious to me who is winning this debate.
Yeah. Right? When they started off, it was like a bucket with wooden wheels. You just crashed and you died. That was it. And then over time, people said, well, why don't we improve it? Why don't we say it has to have brakes? We never thought of brakes. Let's add that. Let's add brakes, and let's add this, and let's add seat belts. We've gotten to the point where cars drive themselves now, and still we say, we've got to write laws. We still say, let's make sure that a self-driving car adheres to certain standards. Let's make sure that it hasn't stopped. And yet somehow with guns, it just stopped. It's such a strange argument for me. Oh, but that wouldn't have fixed it. Yeah, but if you see a loophole, why not fix it before it leads to a problem that it could have stopped?
The problem with the car analogy is that when a drunk driver kills someone with their car, we don't try to ban cars.
Good answer for that. Yeah, you go after the machine, but rather we need to deal primarily with the person, right? That's what I was thinking.
Killed people because they were street racing. We don't try to ban sports cars. When a self-driving car kills someone, we don't try to ban self-driving cars. However, because some mass shooters have used AR-15s, you want to ban AR-15s. Guns have improved in safety the same way cars have. They're more reliable and they have better safety features. Everything we did to make driving safe focused on improving the safety of the item and education. Everything you want to do to make gun ownership safer focuses on restricting guns.
That's the problem. That's not how we solve the problem here. And I think having gun safety and having the proper components that goes along with that and the right training is significant. And I do believe certain level of mental illness should be taken into considerations as well. But again, we can have a person with a good mindset buying a gun down the years. He can become a radical. He could lose his mind. Something tragic happened, or he has an issue with somebody else, and he turned out to be a mass shooter. So these are things we can't necessarily stop and prevent. We can't control the hearts of men. Only God could do that. But I think the notion of taking away the gun, this ideology in itself seems more problematic. It doesn't necessarily solve anything. And what does that do to the other criminals who already own illegal guns, who are going to use it anyway? So these are good questions person got to think about,
The same thing. Oh, it's a slippery slope. Which guns do you ban? Like which guns do you want to ban? It's like, well, just start with the ones that people seem to be using over and over again to go into schools to kill a bunch of children at one time. Oh, but that won't. What if they come with it? Yeah, then we'll deal with that. It's a lot harder to commit these mass shootings when you don't have certain types of weapons.
I told you. They want to ban guns incrementally. It doesn't take a genius to see that his argument makes no logical sense. It's a known fact that handguns are the most common weapon type used in mass shootings.
Yeah, that's very scary. So if AR-15 was the issue, and you say let's take away AR-15, and then we discover later on, well, handguns are the real problem because most of the shootings that are taking place, mass shootings, and also as the regular shootings in our streets are happening with handguns. It only makes sense to say, well, the next thing that we have to take away are the handguns. So what the people are left with exactly now? So I can understand where the argument is coming from. It does make a lot of sense here.
In the United States, with a total of 146 different handguns being used in 98 incidents between 1982 and June 2022. These figures are calculated from a total of 129 reported cases over this period, meaning handguns are involved in about 76% of mass shootings. Yet
wow.
Trevor says we should ban the guns used most in these types of shootings. Those are handguns, but you're talking about banning AR-15s and then telling us we'll deal with the rest later. That means you're arguing from pure ignorance in that you don't know the data, or you're arguing from pure emotion because AR-15s scare you, or you're doing exactly what I know you're doing. You're being deceptive in that you know it's easier to go after AR-15s now, only to come after handguns next. The most deadly school shooting in U.S. history was Virginia Tech. The shooter killed 33 people with handguns. You want to tell me again about how having certain guns that make it easier to kill a bunch of people need to be banned?
People are like, oh, it wouldn't fix.
Wow, what a fact. I mean, I think we have a winner. Do I need to continue this video? I mean, I'm going to, but I mean the response from Collion Noir. I hope I didn't do that. I need to learn how to say his name correctly. Please forgive me. I'm just gonna call him, CN. Can I call him CN for now? All right. So the responses that we're getting from him in answer to Trevor Noir. Listen, we know who wins this debate. He just makes a lot of sense here.
Yeah, nothing fixes everything, but you got to start somewhere. They almost use like the gym argument. That's what it is. You know, when you're trying to get in shape. Because why don't you go out? Nah, I'm just not gonna change anything. Nah, push-ups don't help. Yeah, push-ups on their own don't help, and walking on its own doesn't help. Drinking more water on its own doesn't help. You combine these things step by step, day by day, and then you wake up one day and you're like, wow, I look a little bit better than I did before. I feel a little bit better than I did before. It's not gonna happen overnight. It's incremental. But it's really interesting that it's the one area where so many people just want to throw their hands up.
Trevor, you talk as if we don't have any gun laws in this country. We have over 300 federal gun laws and thousands of gun laws on the state and local level. What do you mean we need to start somewhere? The first piece of national gun control legislation was passed on June 26, 1934 with the National Firearm Act. We started over 80 years ago. You know what's ironic about Trevor's gym analogy though? The one thing he didn't mention was diet. Anyone who knows anything about losing weight knows you can't outwork a bad diet. Yes, more gun control, i.e. lifting weights, makes you feel safer, but if you don't deal with the root cause, i.e. your bad diet, nothing is going to change. As a matter of fact, it'll probably get worse.
The same people, by the way, when they first were told that this was an undocumented immigrant, they were quick.
That is a good point. Yeah, you gotta take care. It's not just how well you can work out. You gotta take care of the diet, and I love this parallel that he takes here. It's actually been said over 75% of your success is your diet. It's best you didn't work out and had a good diet than to work out and have a bad diet, I guess. So in comparison to how this applies to guns, again, Colin is making a lot more sense to me. And I think a lot of people who are trying to somewhat control guns, they call it gun violence, but I would say violence brought about with guns, violence with the use of guns. Okay, most of that is a mental problem we have. Most of that is an issue that we have in our country. It's more than the machine in itself. Although I do think there should be some rules and regulation that goes along with the use of the machine. I think background check is okay. Turn the age up to 21, that might be okay. I don't have an issue with those things. If alcohol and these things cannot be purchased at a certain age, I think being able to purchase a gun at a young age is probably not a good thing either. I think that we should also consider somebody's medical record. So I know this is going to hip into HIPAA violation and so on, but nevertheless, when you're buying a gun, I think there should be rules and regulations enough that allows these things to go through. If we're talking about safety here, it is significant, but I think banning guns altogether just because they're being used by people who's mentally ill or criminals or so on in an effort to save the world, it really isn't really the best solution from my perspective either.
Where when they first were told that this was an undocumented immigrant, they were quick. Yeah, they were all of a sudden they were like, oh, we got to do so, we got to shut down the borders. This is why we need stricter. And then they were like, what? Oh no, it's not what we. Look, this is not the time to politicize things. We don't know what could have been done, and there's nothing that could have been done, and we got to realize that bad people are going to do bad things. Oh, but when you thought it was somebody who came across the border illegally, then you said there was something you could.
So that's a good point that he's making here. I have to give him props for that one. And I think we have to be balanced in our perspective and somewhat understanding both sides of the issue if we're going to control and condemn one particular group of people because of the fact they are not born and raised here, to come in here illegally. And we're talking about doing the proper safety things as far as closing our borders and things like that, regulations and stuff, in order to minimize this violence ever take place, which makes sense. And then we speak both sides of our mouths when it happens right in the country on this notion. On this point, Trevor makes a lot of sense, but I'm anxious to find out what CN has to say in answer to that.
Do. Well, yeah, well, yeah.
He's not lying. There were indeed pro-gun people who did this. But let's not act like the AR-15s are to you what certain immigrants are to the people you were just describing. Y'all both do the same shit. Once you hear about a mass shooting, you start screaming about assault weapon bans until you find out they used a handgun. And
there we go. Great answer. So so there's a level of hypocrisy coming from both sides. Yeah, for those who are for gun control and those who are for the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms and so on. Yeah, there's two sides of the issue here, and both sides should be considered. I appreciate him answering that in a very balanced perspective. I want to hear that again. This is a very intelligent guy. I can see why he's a lawyer.
What certain immigrants are to the people you were just describing. Y'all both do the same shit. Once you hear about a mass shooting, you start screaming about assault weapon bans until you find out they used a handgun, and then, oh, you get real quiet, or you just ignore it altogether. But here's the big difference. Foreigners don't have a constitutional right to enter the U.S. Okay. Citizens of the U.S. have a constitutional right to keep and bear arms. So you're the only one making an argument to infringe on a constitutional right, which requires an exceedingly higher standard than, let's just try it and see if it works.
And the saddest thing is it's a small group of people. Most Americans are on the same page. It's like a small group of people who've managed to shift the Overton window on the conversation around guns. Most gun owners are logical about this. Like real gun owners go to the range and they shoot. You should see how they respect weapons, you know? They'll even be the ones who go like, yeah, maybe we get rid of some of these guns and maybe we change some of those laws and whatever. But then there's this small little group, this lobby that manages to shift the entire conversation in the country. But he can't do it.
Trevor, stop patronizing gun owners and people in the middle. If the majority of gun owners agreed with you, you wouldn't be making this video.
Yeah, I don't agree with that statistic. It's a small group controlling. I think what's happening is more than a small group. I think most people, like myself, I literally had to grow recently from watching a number of videos. I had to learn and understand the use of gun and its purpose and how it is okay as a Christian, as a minister, to bear arms and to protect your family, especially in a world where there's so much evil and wickedness. Right now, you know, why should I be okay with you coming to our church in the name of what? To shoot down our innocent members who did absolutely nothing to you. Should we just sit back and watch you do that? Not this pastor over here, I'll tell you that much. But anyway, I'm going to let him finish.
Gun owners and people in the middle. If the majority of gun owners agreed with you, you wouldn't be making this video.
True.
You only say this as a shaming tactic to the people who aren't gun owners but are in the middle on this issue.
Yeah, I can certainly see that as well. Yeah, but I was able to see right through that statement.
They are the ones who really have the power in this conversation. You're trying to get them to feel like, well, if the majority of gun owners agree with Trevor, then maybe I should too. If anything, this shows that you have very little respect for the people in the middle and their ability to think for themselves.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say I know way more real gun owners than you, and none of them agree with banning AR-15s or any of your proposed gun control measures. So stop lying.
Someone said to me recently about this conversation, he's like, why do we bother? Like, why do we keep having this conversation? I was like, hey, man, I don't know. Why did Martin Luther King Jr. bother? You know, why did Nelson Mandela bother? Why did Mahatma Gandhi bother? Why did Harriet Tubman bother? Why, you know, it's like...
I don't know. I have an issue with you comparing gun control advocates to Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman. These were social activists. They were fighting for the rights of the people. Or I think this ideology to take away the guns of the people, which is really unconstitutional at heart, doesn't serve the benefit, nor does it work for the benefit of the people. It goes against the very principles that we espouse here, that, you know, Martin Luther King, the things that they were fighting for was for Americans to be able to have their freedom, own guns, and being able to be respected and judged by the content of their character instead of the color of their skin. And these were the things that they were fighting for. So I think, Trevor, this is a very poor comparison from my perspective here in connection to these stalwart of our society, of our history, men who really sacrificed their life and wealth and knowledge to protect and to fight for freedom. I don't necessarily agree with that one right here.
Why did Nelson Mandela bother? Why did Mahatma Gandhi bother? Why did Harriet Tubman bother? Why, you know?
And these are big names, man. Nelson Mandela, Harriet, Mahatma Gandhi, they were not fighting for gun control at all.
You have to keep bothering. That's what hope is. You just wake up and you try again and you try again and you try again and you try again, and then, you know, one day you succeed or you die of old age.
Trevor, Martin Luther King fought for civil rights.
Good
Nelson
point.
Mandela fought for civil rights.
That's what I was saying.
Gandhi fought for civil rights.
Yeah.
Harriet Tubman used a gun to fight for civil rights. You, my friend, are doing the opposite.
Yeah. Oh, man. That's kind of what I was trying to say. Thank you. You've said it better than I could. Yeah, I think that's a huge difference. That's kind of the difference I was trying to communicate here. But there we go. I love that answer.
Fought for civil rights.
There we go.
Gandhi fought for civil rights.
Yes, it did.
Harriet Tubman used a gun to fight for civil rights. You, my friend, are doing the opposite, because the Second Amendment is a civil right, and you just spent the last 4 minutes fighting to restrict it.
You know, we talk a lot about empowerment in this country, except for when it comes to the Second Amendment. However,
Yeah. Listen, do I have to add to this? Because we know exactly who won, who makes a lot more sense from my perspective. I'm one of the person in the middle, and I'm looking at the arguments and I'm hearing both perspective. Just CN just makes sense, all right? Since I can't say his name correctly, CN just makes a lot of sense in comparison to Trevor Noah. But here is the big question. Does the Bible actually speak about guns in any way at all? The answer, it actually does. When you go to, for example, in the book of, let's go over to Nehemiah. There are several passages that speaks about this. So this is Old Testament Nehemiah here. Nehemiah 4 verse 18 speaks about while they were building the wall, one of the things that God told them to do is to take their weapons. He says, for the builders, every one of them had a sword girded by his side. Very significant. And look at that, right? They had a sword. And so the reason they had the sword is because they had enemies that was trying to intimidate them from carrying out the work that God had called them to do as far as rebuilding the wall. And he says that they bear their burdens, and those laden, every one of them, with his hands wrought, and with the other hands he held a weapon. So they were working with one hand, the other hand they had a weapon for self-defense, just in case their enemies were to go after them. So I guess from a biblical perspective as well, being able to defend yourself against enemies that could possibly go after you, being able to protect your home is not a bad thing either. But you know, also there's another thing that the Bible speaks about. I think it's in Matthew 26, where he deals with Peter, when Peter somewhat lost his mind and took on a sword and actually cut the ear of a man, one of the soldiers that came to capture Jesus. There it is, 52. Then said Jesus unto him, put again thy sword in his place. For they that take the sword shall perish by the sword. But here is the point that Jesus is talking about. Peter was responding in a very angry manner here, trying to defend Christ when Christ needed to carry out his duty as far as giving his life as a ransom for many. But Jesus was telling Peter, don't live by this sword. And I think there's a lesson here we can learn as well. So it's okay to own gun, but don't live by it as if that's your only means, which I don't think most gun owners are doing that. But I'm just saying there is a level of extremity to this thing that we have to be very careful with. It's one thing to own it and be safe and protect your family, to use it for recreational purposes, to go hunting and so on. I get that side of the story, exercising your Second Amendment. But remember, ultimately, your defense is not in the weapon. Your defense is in God. Thank you for that one as well. I appreciate Colin Noir. I'm gonna learn one day how to say his name correctly. I appreciate CN 2,000 subscribers. You know, I have to join in. This man just makes a lot more sense to me if you were to ask me. I love the content. I love the intelligence that is used as well to make his argument. He just makes a lot more sense to me. Let me know what you think about this reaction video. Are you a fan of Colin CN? Let me know what you like about him, and also let me know below. Comment below. Let me know where do you stand when it comes to this debate, this argument between guns and gun owners and stuff like that, gun control and gun owners. Like, where do you stand when it comes to that? Teach me a little bit more about that. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I recently got my license. My wife is getting hers. We believe in it, but we are careful. We're thinking about taking classes and learning and understanding all the safety measures and everything. So we're in that course process right now. But I would like to know what you are thinking. So share your perspective and thoughts with me on that. Until next time, and as always, as you always know, look unto Jesus and to live by faith. Have a good one. Bye. Hey, by the way, don't forget to like and subscribe.